Joe Sestak, thanks for the call, Joe.
Good to be with you again, Steve. Thank you.
Lots happening with the Pope. Lots happening with John Boehner. You take your pick. What are your feelings about either one or both?
I'm going to pick John Boehner. You know, I heard John Boehner say the wisest thing I ever heard in Congress. The day I was sworn in as a new congressman, January 2007, he was the majority leader of the Republican Party and had to hand the gavel over to soon-to-be Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Before he handed it over, Steve, he said to everyone assembled there after the Republicans had been swept out of the majority, and he said, you know, my party forgot something. It forgot that power is not to be used for power's sake. It's to be used for the people. I think we've lost a good man here in the House of Representatives. Doesn't mean I always agreed with him, but I think he was bound too much by those within his own party to do more good for people.
One major battle that continues in Congress deals with Planned Parenthood and the role Planned Parenthood plays in the American way of life, the role Planned Parenthood plays in receiving funding, federal funding. And John Boehner, in many ways, seemed caught between the far right of his party and what moderates remain in the Republican Party. Do you think that this flap over Planned Parenthood might have had something to do with his decision?
I think, again, this is just an assumption, that, again, it was one more time he wanted to bring about a practical solution and was not able to. Look, people all know that the facts are about Planned Parenthood, that none of the federal money goes to anything in Planned Parenthood but for health of women, in terms of cancer screenings, in terms of care for women, so many of them poor that are taken care of. But the fact this became an issue once more to shut down the government may well have been the straw that he just could not get through a practical solution, being bound by those who misrepresent the facts.
I believe that's a big word, and it's a good word. The misrepresentation that I've been trying to point out is simple to display. It's simple to exhibit if you're open to what the truth and what the facts happen to be. And when it comes to women's rights, women's reproductive rights particularly, we have to take a look at what the facts tell us. You have some thoughts on that, I take it.
I sure do. Look, women are able to do something that is absolutely essential, obviously, to our continuing to be all we can be. They can bear a child. And until the Affordable Care Act was passed, a woman who wanted to buy an individualized plan on the individualized market often paid up to 4 times as much as a man. Now, they often didn't get prenatal care. All of a sudden, the Affordable Care Act says women will be able to have colonoscopy, cervical cancer screening, prenatal testing for no additional cost. They're able to go in and see if they can have, for free, diabetes screening, HPV testing. And the reason is not just for the woman, but for the child. So in my mind, women are unique, obviously, in what they can do, and not to be able to take care of their reproduction health, I think, is absolutely the wrong way to approach things.
We're also talking, as long as we're talking about women and women's rights, we're also talking about fairness, and equal pay comes into this discussion. The man whose job you hope to take, Senator Toomey, voted 6 times against the Paycheck Fairness Act. Tell us a little bit about that.
That's what I can't understand. You know, Senator Toomey says, hey, if they show up, put in an honest day's work, they'll get a raise. And yet he voted 6 times, as you said, against the Paycheck Fairness Act, which would ensure equal pay for equal women. Statistics, facts show the woman makes somewhere between 72 cents to 94 cents to the dollar that a guy gets for the same job. But if you're African American, it's 64 cents. And if you're Hispanic, 54 cents. And he has said, let the marketplace work it out. You know, he also opposed, Steve, the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act, where a woman would be denied the ability to sue once she found out months or years so later that this guy hired at the same time was given double the pay or half the or 50% more pay. Look, we're a nation of laws, not of men. And so, therefore, we have to be able to have a woman have a right for a day in court. Senator Toomey and I have an absolutely different approach to the fairness for women issue.
When the Senate tried to pass the Paycheck Fairness Act, once again, Senator Toomey filibustered it.
That's right. But here's the other issue, why I have a problem with Senator Toomey. Look, I learned in the military, it's all hands on deck. You wanted the best of all demographics. Men, women, everyone. Race, creed, didn't matter. Well, you know, women today own 1/3 of all small businesses. It's the fastest small business ownership demographic in America. And yet, on bank loans that go to small businesses, these women only get 4% of bank businesses. And government contracts, they're supposed to be 23% are supposed to go to small businesses. And yet, even though women own 1/3 of small business in America, they get less than 4% of the small business contracts. Look, Senator Toomey believes you're on your own. You know, he'll come up here and say, let's have equality. But when he's in Washington, D.C., he voted against programs like the Women Business Development Centers to help women have their fair day for contracts from government to close them down.
When you were in Congress, did you not also introduce the Gender Equity Act?
That's correct. Look, I'm a big believer that whether it's race, creed, gender, or anything like that, you have to have equality. But here's the reason why, Steve. It's not just for the individual. It's for the good of the mission. I tell everybody about that night over Afghanistan where I had 8 pilots go up. The first strike we were going to do for my aircraft carrier battle group. They weren't supposed to dive below 20,000 feet without permission because we thought the Taliban had Stinger missiles that went to 18,000 feet. 8 special forces had been ambushed. 4 died immediately. This one woman up there, who, when I joined the Navy during Vietnam, we didn't have women on ships. I don't mind fighting and flying an F-18 aircraft. She thought, I don't have time to ask permission, and dove. While others waited, she dove 3 times in the middle of the night and saved those 4 soldiers who picked up their dead comrade and came home. The point is this. We were better that night because of gender equality in the military, and that's why I supported that bill that you brought up and sponsored it.
Well, even though that bill never became law because of obstructionism in Congress, I think that the story you just told us shows us that that Gender Equity Act was in effect that night.
It was. Look, you know, you live on a ship, and you know this, Steve. You know, a small room, and if you're enlisted, 40 people in that room. If you're an officer, you got maybe 6 as a junior officer. You pretty much learn that everybody's on their own, and all you care about is how good are you. If they can fit and pass the test. You know what? In the military, you get equal pay. That woman that night got the same darn pay as every one of those other pilots. Why isn't society like that? And the fact shows that the equality issue on pay that was passed about half a century ago has a loophole in it. And so I'm just saying on the Paycheck Fairness Act, fix it. Because right now, a business can deny a woman equal pay on an issue other than sex. So, for example, if a guy says, I'm a better negotiator, goes in and negotiates better, or something like that, he just happens to walk out with $2 more an hour, that's not right. That woman, if she does the same work as the guy, deserves the same pay. And that's all the Paycheck Fairness Act does, just like it does in the military.
So what's on the campaign trail? What's happening with the campaign, Joe?
Well, I just got off a great parade the other night. I was down in Ephrata. I was in Lancaster County. Wonderful parade. Look, I love parades. It started about 8:30 at night, or that's when my portion of the parade got off. 8,000 people in that parade. I had about a dozen volunteers passing out brochures. I went back and forth and shook 8,000 hands. I got to tell you something, Steve. it is about people. It isn't about party or type. They're secondary to people. And on that evening, everybody was there, and it was a conservative Republican place. You know what? My district was Republican, and my second race, I won it with only $28,000 in yard sign. People don't always want you to agree with them. They just expect that you'll be there and listen and try to do your job. And that goes back to Boehner. I think Boehner did want to do his job. I just think he got caught up in those like Senator Toomey, quite frankly, that believe in ideology over practical approaches to fix problems.
Joe Sestak, it's always good to talk with you. We'll talk with you again soon.
Thanks, Steve. Have a great day.
You too. Thank you.